The sky had never looked like that before. It was deep gray, almost black, as if someone had painted over the sun. The wind pushed trees in every direction. Leaves flew through the air like birds with no wings. Sam ran, his backpack hitting his back with every step. He didn't look behind. He didn't have to. The sound of the hurricane was enough. Loud, angry, alive. He had only one place in mind, not the town shelter. It was too far. Not his house. It would fall apart in minutes. There was one thing left, an old bunker in the woods. His grandfather had shown it to him years ago. People said it was just an empty metal hole, left from a time when people feared war. But his grandfather had once said, if you're ever truly scared, go there. Just don't touch anything. Now, Sam understood what that meant. The bunker was hidden by thick trees. Its metal door had vines growing on it, but it wasn't locked. He pulled it open with both hands, wind pressing against him like a wall. Inside was quiet, too quiet. He stepped in and closed the door behind him. Silence, no more wind, no more flying branches, just the sound of his own breathing and the soft click of the door as it sealed shut. His flashlight lit up the first hallway. The walls were made of old steel, with bolts that looked like they hadn't been moved in years. Safe, he whispered to himself. But as he took a step forward, he heard something strange. Breathing. Not his. It was slow, steady, and deep. Like someone or something was sleeping in the dark. He froze. Maybe it was just air moving through the pipes. Old places made noises. That was normal, right? He moved forward carefully. His boots echoed slightly on the metal floor. The flashlight flickered once, then stayed on. He passed old boxes, some broken, some still closed. There were old chairs, fallen over, and a desk with dust so thick it looked like a grey blanket. The breathing came again. Still soft, still steady. He followed the sound, step by slow step. It was coming from deeper inside. The air felt strange here, warm, not like the cold wind outside. It was almost too warm, like the bunker had its own heartbeat. Then he saw a stairwell, going down. A rusted sign next to it said lower storage, level B. That's where the sound was coming from. Sam stood at the top of the stairs, his light pointing down. It didn't reach the bottom. The breathing stopped. He waited. 1 second, 2, 3. Nothing. He took the first step. It creaked under his weight. He went down, slowly, not making a sound. The lower levels smelled different, like wet stone and old metal. He reached the bottom and turned to the left. The hallway was darker here. His flashlight flickered again. He shook it, and the light came back but weaker. There was movement ahead, not fast, just a shift, like someone adjusting their position. He raised the flashlight and aimed it forward. Nothing there. He stepped closer. A small room opened to his right. Inside were broken machines, old screens, and papers scattered across the floor. He walked in and picked up a sheet. Most of the words were faded, but he could read one line near the top. Do not enter without clearance. Below it, written in pen, do not wake it. He didn't know what it meant. An animal, a machine. Then the breathing returned, but this time, it wasn't slow. It was right behind him. Sam turned quickly. The flashlight beam shook in his hand, lighting up the hallway. Empty. Nothing there, but something had moved. He stepped out of the room. His hand brushed the wall as he walked slowly back toward the stairwell. His foot hit something soft. He looked down. A blanket. No, not a blanket. It was warm. It moved. He jumped back, his light falling from his hand. It rolled on the floor, spinning, then stopped, pointing toward the far end of the hallway, where a shape stood. Not tall, not short, just wrong. Sam held his breath. The shape didn't move. It just stood there. Then, without warning, it stepped back into the shadows. Gone. He picked up the flashlight, heart pounding, and backed toward the stairs. He didn't want to run. He didn't want to make noise. He took one step up, then another. From below, he heard a voice, soft, almost like a whisper. Why? Now he froze. It wasn't a threat. It sounded tired, like someone waking from a long dream. Sam didn't answer. He kept walking, slowly, carefully, until he was back in the upper hallway. He closed the hatch behind him and sat down on the cold floor. The hurricane still raged outside, but down here, something had been waiting, and now it was awake. Sam didn't sleep. He sat near the sealed metal door, legs pulled close to his chest, the flashlight resting in his lap. He hadn't heard anything for hours. no footsteps, no voice, just silence. But even silence in a place like this felt loud. The air was too still. No wind, no sound from the surface, not even the usual creaks of an old structure. It felt like time had stopped. Sam looked at the flashlight. The battery was still good, but he didn't want to test how long it would last. He decided to move, not because he wanted to, but because sitting still was starting to feel worse than walking forward. He stood slowly and took one last look at the door. The storm was still out there, but something else was down here, and now he was part of both. He walked back toward the hallway, every step careful, every sound echoing softly against the walls. The flashlight lit up the floor ahead of him, dust dancing in the beam. When he reached the stairs again, he hesitated. The lower level hadn't changed. It still smelled warm and damp, like the inside of a cave. But something inside him had changed. He wasn't just scared, now he was curious. Why did the voice sound so human? Why did it know he was there? He stepped down, slower this time. Each stair groaned softly under his weight. When he reached the bottom, he didn't turn on the light right away. He stood in the dark, listening. No breathing, no movement, just that strange, heavy stillness again. He turned left and moved back toward the small room where he had found the warning paper. This time, he searched more carefully. He picked up an old folder half covered in dust and flipped it open. Inside were photos, blurry ones, shapes in glass tubes, diagrams of body parts, some familiar, some not. Next to them was a list. It had dates, names, and a column titled Status. Every line said the same thing. Dormant. At the very bottom, there was a handwritten note. One is still aware. Monitor for response. Sam's fingers brushed the paper slowly. The ink was faded, but fresh, enough to read. This wasn't just a place to hide. It had been used for something quiet, secret, and very strange. He stood up and looked at the walls. There was a vent, old and half open. Warm air pushed through it, even though no machines were running. As he stepped back into the hallway, the flashlight flickered again. This time, the light didn't come back strong. It stayed dim, soft, barely enough to see the end of the corridor. Then something unexpected, a faint glow down the hall, a light not from his torch. He followed it, heartbeat steady, but fast. The light led him to a door he hadn't noticed before. It was cleaner than the others, made of smooth silver metal with a keypad on the side. The keypad was dark, but the small screen above it blinked. Bot. One word flashed slowly. Listening. Sam didn't touch it, but as he stood there, a low hum started in the wall. A quiet voice spoke again, not loud, not sharp, just ... .com. Not him, it said. Sam looked round. Who are you talking to? He asked softly. The voice replied, not him, but close. The same line, the same mind. Sam stepped closer. What does that mean? Silence. Then the screen flashed again, ready to begin sequence. He didn't press anything, he backed away. Behind him, a small light switched on by itself. Another room, another choice. He entered the room slowly. It was round, almost like a dome, with screens on every wallowed monitors showing snowy static. In the center was a chair, and behind it, another sealed glass pod. Inside the pod was a figure. Small. Still, its skin was light gray. Its eyes were closed, but it looked calm, not hurt, not trapped, just sleeping. Sam didn't know what he was looking at, but something about it felt familiar. Not the way it looked, but the feeling in the air, like a memory trying to wake up. There was a console near the pod with more words flashing. Last contact, 57 years ago. Waiting for signal. Sam stared at it, not knowing what to do. The storm outside could still be tearing the world apart. But in here, something was preparing to begin again. Something that had been waiting longer than his entire life. He took one slow step back. That's when the whisper returned. But it didn't come from the walls. It came from inside. His own thoughts. You found me. He dropped the flashlight. And even in the dark, he felt like something had just opened its eyes. Sam didn't remember falling asleep. One moment, he was on the floor near the glass pod, the whisper still echoing in his thoughts, and the next, he opened his eyes to soft blue light pulsing gently around the room. The flashlight was still where he dropped it, but now it was glowing faintly, like the room itself had changed the way light worked. He sat up slowly. The air felt cooler, cleaner, like the whole place had taken a deep breath while he was out. The pod in front of him was still sealed. The figure inside hadn't moved, but the screens around the walls, they were no longer showing static. They were showing him, images from earlier, him entering the bunker, walking the halls, even standing near the locked silver door. Every step had been watched. Sam stood, heart steady but heavy. He turned slowly, eyes scanning the room. "Who's watching me?" he said aloud, though his voice came out low. A soft chime rang from the ceiling. Then, the same quiet voice from before filled the space, not loud, not cold, but warm, almost like someone reading a bedtime story. "You are the match." Access restored. Before Sam could respond, the pod in the center made a soft hiss. The glass surface shimmered like fog was lifting from inside. The figure within was clearer now. Not human, but not frightening either. Its eyes were still closed, but its hands had moved, one resting gently against the glass. Sam took a small step forward. He didn't understand what he was feeling. There was no fear, only a strange pull, like meeting someone who already knew you. Then something behind him changed. The hallway outside the dome flickered to life. Small lights along the floor turned on one by one, creating a path that led deeper into the bunker. Sam looked back at the pod. It hadn't opened yet, but something told him this wasn't just a resting place. It was a gate, and the key wasn't a code. It was him. The voice returned, but not from the ceiling. This time it came from the wall beside the exit. "Welcome to core memory. Initiating first sequence." The floor shifted under his feet, just a soft hum, as if the room had started moving. But it wasn't the room that moved, it was something under it. Sam stepped into the hallway again. Following the new lights, the path turned sharply left, then led into a new section he hadn't seen before. These walls were different, newer, clean, almost untouched by time. Strange symbols were printed on the walls, part writing, part design, but none of it was human. At the end of the hallway stood a glass door. As Sam approached, it slid open without a sound. Inside was a small circular room with a single screen in the center, floating in the air without support. The screen blinked and showed a name. Project Havenlight. Interface activation. More text. Followed. Warning. Subject BO1 still in rest cycle. Do not disturb unless match has been confirmed. Sam stepped closer. Subject BO1. He looked back at the hallway. That must be the one in the pod. The screen blinked again. "Would you like to view core memory?" Without thinking, Sam whispered, "Yes." Suddenly, the screen expanded into a wide view, like a dome of stars surrounding him. He wasn't in a room anymore. He was standing inside a sky filled with shapes, planets, and lines of light. At the center, he saw a glowing blue sphere, Earth. A new voice filled the dome, deeper, slower. It was a recording. "They left us here when the winds first changed. We waited, not for rescue, not for return. We waited for a signal, a human signal. Not just any human, but the one with the matching sequence." The stars moved. Now he saw bunkers, many of them hidden all over the planet, under deserts, under oceans, under ice. Each one held a light inside. Sam stood quietly, watching. "We were not made to fight. We were made to remember and protect." The stars faded. The dome closed. The screen returned to its normal size. Then, once again, the voice whispered, not from the walls this time, and not from the screen, but from behind him, brought light. He turned slowly. The figure from the pod was standing just outside the dome room. Eyes open. Eyes open. No anger, no confusion. Only calm. Sam didn't speak. He couldn't find the words. The being took one step forward and placed its hand over its heart. Then it said, very gently, "I remember your blood. I remember your family. They made the promise. You returned to keep it." The lights around them began to rise, soft and golden. The bunker was no longer cold or forgotten. It was waking up. And Sam was no longer just a visitor. He was part of it now. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of presence, like the air itself was listening. Sam stood still, unsure what to do next. The being before him was unlike anything he had ever seen, yet there was something familiar about it. Its skin was smooth and pale with a faint glow, like moonlight trapped beneath the surface. Its eyes were large, silver, and soft, not staring through him, but at him, like it truly saw him. The creature didn't move closer. It simply stood, breathing slowly, waiting. Sam took a cautious step forward. "You know me?" he asked quietly. The being nodded once, its voice just above a whisper. "Your name is not known to me, but your presence is. Your line carries memory. The one who sealed this place shared your face." Sam blinked. "My grandfather." The being looked down, then back at him. He was kind. He did not fear. He gave his time to protect what others forgot. Sam's mind raced. His grandfather had always been quiet about his past. He told stories sometimes about old machines, secret work, science projects, but it always sounded like fiction. Now, those stories were becoming real, one by one. "How long have you been here?" Sam asked. "Since before the winds changed." The being replied, "Before silence fell. We were placed here to rest, not to hide, but to wait." "Wait for what?" Sam whispered. The answer came without pause. Sam tried to make sense of it, but he couldn't, not fully. "Why me?" The being raised its hand and turned toward the hallway behind them. "Come," it said, "I will show you." They walked side by side through the glowing corridor, deeper into the bunker. The lights adjusted as they moved, never too bright, always calm. They passed doors Sam hadn't noticed before, each with strange markings and faint blue symbols etched in the steel dot. At last, they entered a room unlike the others. It was tall, round, and full of curved glass panels that reached toward the ceiling. Inside each panel floated a shape small and soft like dust frozen in light. But when Sam stepped closer, he saw they weren't just dust. They were memories. Each panel played a silent scene, moving pictures without sound. One showed his grandfather, younger and dressed in white, standing beside the being who now walked with Sam. Another showed workers building the bunker, carrying parts with care, installing lights and tools with gentle hands. "They came not to trap," the being said, pointing to the images. "They came to protect." The world above was growing fast. They feared forgetting what mattered. Sam watched another panel. This one showed people sitting at a table, speaking with the being. They weren't afraid. They were listening, learning. "There were many like me," the being continued, "each one placed in a quiet place, far from noise, far from war. We were called keepers. We held stories, knowledge, old truths. But time passed. Storms came, signals ended, and we slept." Sam looked up at the final panel. It was still dark. "That one waits for a new memory," the being said. "For me?" Sam asked. The being nodded. "You came not because you wanted to. You came because you were led. The winds above are not the only forces moving." Sam stepped into the center of the room. A soft light shone down from the ceiling. It warmed his shoulders, his hands, his heart. Something deep within him stirred like a memory he had never lived, but always carried. "What do I do now?" he asked. The being stepped closer. "You listen, you remember, and when the time comes, you will speak." The walls around them shimmered. The light panels began to glow brighter, one by one, as if the presence of a living soul had reawakened their purpose. Then, without warning, a gentle hum spread through the floor. The being turned its head. "Others are waking," it said quietly. Sam looked around. "Others like you." The being nodded slowly. "Not all are the same. Some hold stories, some hold light, some hold silence, but all are watching now." A soft voice came from above, a different one. It spoke only one line. "Connection restored. Signal detected. Level 3 opening." The being turned to Sam. "This has not happened in many years. You must be ready." "For what?" Sam asked, his voice barely above a breath. The being looked into his eyes. "For the world to remember what it tried to forget." The lights shifted again, this time deeper, warmer, like the soft glow of a sunrise beneath the earth. Sam followed the being through another curved hallway. The walls were smooth now, made of a silver-like metal that reflected faint colors as they walked. Everything felt older here, yet untouched, preserved by purpose. The hallway led them to a doorway much larger than the others. There was no handle, no panel, only a blank wall that hummed quietly. The being stood in front of it and placed its hand against the surface. Nothing happened. Then, slowly, the wall responded. A single vertical line appeared, glowing with a soft blue light. It stretched from floor to ceiling, then divided silently to either side. The door melted open, revealing a new chamber. This room felt different, not just in shape or design, but in energy. The air carried a feeling like walking into a library that had been waiting for someone to read its last book. Sam stepped in behind the being. The chamber was wide and round, with a tall column rising in the center. Around the column were panels, each showing soft lines of light moving slowly like quiet rivers. "What is this place?" Sam asked. The being walked toward the center. "This is where truths are held," it said. "Not facts, but truths. The kind that live in the space between words." Sam looked around, feeling as if something unseen was brushing against the edges of his thoughts. Not voices, not noise, just presence. The being raised its hand again, and the center column lit up. Images appeared, some too fast to follow, others lingering just long enough to stir emotion. He saw forests, stars, strange machines, a city made of crystal towers that curved like tree branches. Then he saw people, not many, just a few, humans talking with beings like the one beside him, smiling, working together. These were the first visitors. The being explained. They came, not to lead, but to learn. They asked questions without fear. They stayed without asking to rule. "Were they from Earth?" Sam asked. "Yes," the being said softly. "But long before your time, before memory became history, and history became story." Sam walked around the central column, watching the images shift. One moment showed a storm, not like the hurricane above, but something deeper, something that moved through both sky and heart. Another showed a great closing of doors. Many beings of different shapes and sizes were entering pods, chambers, bunkers like this one. "We knew silence was coming," the being said, stepping beside Sam, "so we gave ourselves to it. Not to escape, but to remain." Sam touched the edge of the column. The surface rippled beneath his fingers, like touching still water. Then the scene changed again. He saw his grandfather, standing in this very room, younger, but with the same eyes Sam had seen in old family photos, the same quiet strength. He was speaking to the being. The voice from the memory played softly. "One day, someone will come here without fear. He won't know why he came, but he'll listen, he'll ask, he'll care. That will be enough." The image faded. Sam stood still, heart full, unsure what to feel. He had never really understood his grandfather's silences, the way he would look out the window for long minutes, lost in thought. But now, here in this place, it made sense. His grandfather hadn't been keeping secrets, he had been keeping promises. "I didn't come here on purpose," Sam whispered. "The storm had pushed me. I was just trying to survive." The being nodded. "Sometimes survival leads us to the right door, even when we don't know we're looking for it." Just then, a soft tone filled the chamber. The panels dimmed, and a voice, not from the being, but from the room itself, spoke gently. "Subject BO1 energy levels rising. Connection stabilizing." Sam turned toward the exit. The being looked with him. "The one who slept is waking," it said, "not because of danger, but because of presence. Your presence." Sam followed the being out of the chamber. The path ahead was brighter now, and the temperature slightly warmer. As they walked, he noticed faint pulses of light along the walls, as if the entire structure was breathing again after years of stillness. They returned to the pod room. The glass that once held the figure was now fully open, and the being who had rested inside was standing on their own, different from the first, smaller, quieter, but something about this second one felt even more ancient. Their eyes were not silver, they were glowing white. They turned toward Sam without fear, and spoke the first words with a voice like wind through trees. "You brought memory back." The first being bowed gently. Sam didn't know what to say. He just stood there, heart full of questions, head full of wonder. Two beings, one place, and a human who didn't come to lead but to listen. And still, somewhere far above, the storm continued to pass, sun aware of what had just awakened beneath its winds. The room held a soft stillness, as if the air itself was listening. The second being, now awake, stood with grace and silence. Their white glowing eyes watched Sam with no judgment, only quiet attention. They didn't speak again, but something in the way they looked at him made him feel seen. The first being stepped slightly aside, giving space between Sam and the newly awakened one. "She remembers everything," it said gently, "even the parts lost to time." Sam hesitated. "She?" The being nodded once. "She is not what you would call human, but she is close, designed from memory, built from peace, and shaped with light." The second being, she took a slow step forward. Her movement was like water, smooth and calm. Then, with a voice soft as wind passing through leaves, she spoke again. "You are the echo, the return." the one who came without knowing, but stayed without asking. Sam didn't fully understand, but he nodded. I didn't plan to be here, but I think I was meant to find this place. The lights in the room dimmed gently, and a new door slid open at the far end. Beyond it, a tunnel stretched forward, wider than the others, carved, not from metal, but something older, stone maybe. The path seemed to glow faintly with a soft blue light beneath the floor. This is the path below the path. The first being said. It leads to the heart. The heart of what? Sam asked. The place where everything began. The second being answered. Before the silence, before the storm. They walked together through the tunnel, the lights rising with every step they took. As they moved forward, the walls began to shift. Symbols appeared flowing like moving ink telling stories without words. Sam couldn't read them, but he felt them. Pictures formed in his mind. Ancient skies, great gatherings, promises made under starlight. Your kind was once part of this. The first being said. Not rulers, not servants, but bridges. You carried ideas across galaxies, and hearts across differences. Sam glanced at them. Why don't we remember? The second being looked at him gently. Because remembering requires silence, and your world forgot how to be still. They walked further until the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, unlike any other Sam had seen. It wasn't filled with machines, or glowing walls. It was natural, like a deep cave, with walls that sparkled faintly under unseen light. In the center stood a tall, clear column filled with slow-moving light, pulsing gently, like a heartbeat. This is the core, said the first being. It holds the memory of all the bunkers, all the keepers, all the bridges, waiting for the time when the signal would return. Sam stepped closer. The light inside the column reacted to his movement, soft lines of blue shifting and dancing. Upward, a quiet chime filled the air, and a new voice, calm, smooth, old, spoke from nowhere and everywhere at once. Bridge confirmed, line awakened, memory flow restored. Sam's breath caught in his throat. This is more than just a bunker, he whispered. This is alive. The second being stood beside him. It remembers every word, every step, every silence. And now, because of you, it begins again. Sam placed his hand near the column, not touching, just close. Images flashed quickly before his eyes, not like the ones before, but sharper, stronger. He saw Earth, not as it was now, but as it once was. Peaceful skies, green lands, cities filled with quiet music and laughter. He saw people walking beside beings of all shapes and sizes, learning, sharing, building. Then, a silence, a great stillness. The bridges were closed, the skies darkened, and the bunkers were sealed. He pulled his hand back slowly. The images stopped. I saw what we were, Sam whispered, and what we lost. The first being nodded. But now the gate is open again, and what was lost can be remembered. A soft tone echoed again. Surface storm is passing. Air pressure rising. External access may resume. Sam looked toward the tunnel. The way back was clear. He could return now, step into the world above. Changed, full of questions, but no longer afraid. The second being stepped closer. What happens next is not decided by us. It is decided by you. Me, Sam asked. She nodded. You will carry what this place holds. Not just the memory, but the meaning. Sam looked at the glowing core once more. He wasn't sure how. He wasn't sure when. But he knew he had to try. Then, I'll listen. I'll share what I've seen. The first being smiled just slightly. That is enough to begin. And as they turned to walk back toward the surface, Sam realized something simple but powerful. He hadn't just survived the storm. He had walked into something ancient, and something ancient had walked into him.